Hello and welcome to the Good Old Days, our program focusing on the history of Raynham, history of yesterday and today's news, which will be tomorrow's history. Our host is retired Selectman Don McKinnon. Welcome, Don.
Thank you, Patricia. Thank you. We have a good time here, you and I.
Yes, and we have a special guest with us. We have Azu Etoniru, who is the consultant for the Conservation Commission. And welcome. Thank you for joining us here.
Thank you for having me.
Of the different departments in the town, there are certain key departments to the growth of a town. They come in at different times, interestingly enough. For example, planning board is when there's a rush on growth. Finance committee is when there's fiscal crisis. So each one of the boards seem to have particular times. But conservation is always in the watch because, Azu, is it correct to say they're not the most popular group when they have a big parade? There's conservation in the front, and they say, "Here comes conservation, yay!"
Well, I don't think you're going to win a popularity contest when you're in a regulatory capacity.
It is probably as controversial as anything, but just based on the fact that if the appeals doesn't do its job, and the planning board doesn't do it, and conservation doesn't do it, things happen in towns that you're sorry for. And we do a little bragging in Raynham, and we believe the town of Raynham has been growing correctly. I remember when Plymouth got that plant down there, and we were going to have something like that, and I said, please don't do to us what happened to Plymouth. Because all of a sudden, boom, and the tax rate went right down, and so people all moved in, and then the tax rate went back up. And that's dangerous. So there is planned growth. Both in Azu, you are affiliated with both Bridgewater and Raynham, as is Patricia at the Bridgewater-Raynham school system.
Well, that's good.
So there is a I'm the only one that's a rebel. but we'll look and see that those two towns seem to have their growth pattern structured. Would you say that?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
I'd say so. They very much will complement each other. And as you just stated, Pat is also involved in the school system. And both communities share at least the high school. And so they have what I will call two sisters or two brothers.
That's right, communities. Yeah.
Now tell us a little bit about Conservation Commission. I know the members are appointed by the Board of Selectmen, Don.
That's right.
Is that federally regulated or required or state required or? It comes under the National Wetlands Protection Act?
This is complicated.
Yes.
It gets a little complicated, but to kind of put it in simple terms, the Conservation Commission, it's basically a board that usually gets appointed by the Board of Selectmen in a selectmen town type of government. When it's a town council type of government, then the members are appointed by the town manager, and then they are ratified by the town council. But basically, it's a body, if you will, at the local level that is charged with the administration of the Wetlands Protection Act. And you will hear people talk about the Wetlands Protection Act of Chapter 131, Section 40. And then basically, they are charged with regulating all activities that have come within the 100-foot jurisdictional boundary of a bordering vegetated wetlands. There are so many wetlands resources. You'll hear people talk about the riverfront area.
Right.
You'll hear about isolated land subject to flooding. You'll hear about floodplains. And so when you're doing work involving any one of those resources, you will have to come to the Conservation Commission for review and approval.
Okay.
I think the most recent and of course, I consider town meetings like baseball games. It's one of my sports. You know, I enjoy them. But there was an article that was constantly being placed on prior to your entering the scene, and it was the setback, 25 feet versus 50 feet off of a wetland.
Okay, under the Wetlands Protection Act, there are no specific setback requirements for bordering vegetated wetlands. But what has happened is local communities find it very frustrating that when you give somebody a foot, they want to take 10 feet.
That's right.
So what in the case of the town of Raynham, what the Conservation Commission has done is provide an actual buffer that says you can't work closer than 25 feet from the wetlands. And that it allows for a natural protection between the use of the land and the actual wetlands area.
Now, a couple of years ago, though, I think it was a year ago, this last town meeting, didn't Billy Smith put in something for 50 feet? Or did he put it in for 25 feet?
No, it would be 25 feet.
25
no 50 feet.
And prior to that, you could go right up to the
edge of the wetlands.
edge of the wetlands.
That is correct.
And I remember that one of the problems conservation was having is, and this is the next question I guess we'll ask you, if the Conservation Commission tried to implement the 25 feet without having that passed as a local bylaw, the people would appeal to the state. And often the state would then, I guess I'll say, overrule the local community and granted permission. Does that sound?
That will be what has happened is under the Wetlands Protection Act, any aggrieved person who is aggrieved of the decision of the commission, whether it be the applicant or any direct abutter or any group of 10 citizens, can actually appeal that decision to the regional office of the Department of Environmental Protection. You hear people say DEP, but that is basically the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection. And what happens, Pat, is that also the communities, the conservation commissions are usually more in tune with their community and seeing, what the resources are, farm areas, wet areas. So the local bylaw cannot really be overturned by the DEP, and that is really the reason for the local bylaw, is that for you to appeal that decision, you have to go to the Superior Court. So you have to have real reasons for appealing that decision, and just not.
It seemed though that when we didn't have that bylaw that Billy Smith sponsored 2 years ago, I'll say, people were winning that in Lakeville. Is that where they are?
Yeah, the Lakeville office.
Winning it in Lakeville, because Lakeville was saying, well, if you really are serious about that, then the town will pass that at a town meeting, and they never have. And so that was one of the reasons the state gave for overruling us. The interesting part of it was that, and it's just one of those things, the way people perceive. What would happen is someone from conservation would present the article, 25-foot buffer, and then someone would jump up and say, if I have a tree that falls down and gets hit by lightning and this, can I do anything about that? And someone who had a more conservative view of conservation, who was affiliated with conservation, would jump up and say, you cannot remove that tree unless, and everybody's saying, oh, I'm not going to vote for it then. And so that defeated it each time. Billy Smith, and you know Billy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good man.
He is a good man. And Billy Smith, he must have lost more night's sleep getting ready for that, because it's always controversial, and they're always arguing it. So Billy's there, and he's getting ready to go, Come to find out, there was 3 or 4 controversial articles before it, which means now we're approaching 10:30, 11, which is you could pass the invasion of Taunton, and people would vote, yes, let's invade. And so Billy's all ready to jump up, and the article's introduced, and someone seconds it, next thing, and the town moderator is, everybody's for, yes, everybody's for it, and all of a sudden Billy's looking around, it passed, and he wasn't ready for that.
You never know at those town meetings what's going to happen.
But when you really think about it, though, yes, he might have been the leader for that, but I think the whole Conservation Commission was unanimous in trying to get that bylaw passed.
I was for it, because we had a situation in our neighborhood where they're right up to the stream. Oh yeah, no, most people were for it.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, what would happen sometimes at these meetings is someone who didn't want it would give them the tree example,
Right.
because they know it's like red meat to conservation people. So
But you see, that is though, Don, that is the extreme. You know what I'm saying?
I know.
Because in reality, nobody will stop you from, removing a dead tree or a fallen tree from the area. But what has happened too in the past, historically, people use that as an excuse
Yeah.
to pillage the wetlands. But I think if you look at the language
Yeah.
of the 25-foot buffer, they actually made certain exemptions for single-family home and individual that's
Which
been there
probably should
with
have
a-
been said the night of
Yeah.
that town meeting.
Yeah, but that
And
is
maybe then
in
it
there.
would have passed.
Yeah.
That's the irony of the situation. This is the oldest thing in the world. Conservation is one of the most difficult groups to be in because they make the controversial decision. You happen to have a full board, and not you have, but
Yeah,
the town
the
has
town.
a full complement. We've got 2 openings on the finance committee. Please, out there, somebody apply. They used to wait in line to be on the finance committee, but the interest in these board positions is going down. So compliments to you and to the chairman Smith at the time and other people who's the chairman? They chair. I think they changed the chairman.
Yes, now they do have a co-chairs, and that will be Bill Reynolds and Kevin Morera.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good. I didn't know that. That's a good idea.
Azu, why is the protection of the wetlands so important?
Well, you really do need a balance in our ecosystem. And not to get controversial, but it's the analogy that I will give you, Pat, it will be in the emission standards. For example, we have emission standards for automobiles, for planes, and because you want to be good stewards of the natural resources that we've been given, if we don't have a control on standards for air pollution, a lot of us might end up with emphysema.
Sure.
The same thing happens with the wetlands. The wetlands serve as natural recharge basins for our groundwater. And then our groundwater flows into our wells. And we don't have a lot of our surface water reservoirs, where a lot of the water supplies as well. So if you do not protect the wetlands, then your groundwater supply, which feeds your wells, will potentially get damaged. That increases your cost of water treatment. So if you don't regulate the runoff from paved areas, all the that are associated with construction sites, well, that eventually goes into your wetlands. And if they are not properly filtered, say for example manganese, if you get an increase in manganese, then your treatment cost goes up, and then property taxes go up. So those are the things that people don't readily see, Pat.
Sure.
And so it's very important that we protect the wetlands resources to provide a balance to our ecosystem.
It seems like there's more concern now than there had been in the past about conservation and protection of resources and so forth. Do you find that, or is that not the case?
Well, it is the case. If you were to go, I hate to date myself because when I start going, well, this happened 50 years ago. Then people start adding up and say, whoa, he must be 80 or whatever.
No, you've been at
But anyway,
Started
not
with
to date.
48 years.
Yeah,
48
okay.
years. Okay.
But no, but the point, though, Don and Pat, is this. 50 years ago, 40 years ago, you don't have the growth in population centers. Okay, I will submit to you that Raynham has seen its population increase. So, and God has not made more land for us. So we are expanding and extending more uses. So you don't have as much open spaces
Sure.
as we had before. You probably 50 years ago, Don, you can travel maybe a mile before you see a neighbor. Well, now you only get out of your window, look through your window, and you see a neighbor on this side, on that side, a street in the front, a neighbor in the back. So as population increases, the use and tax on the land increases. And therefore, we have to increase our awareness, public information,
Sure.
so that people realize that, now we have more toilets, more wastewater in terms of runoff, in terms of, septic systems. So the more you increase our demand on our resources, well, the more you want to protect the resources so that we can continue to enjoy our environment.
You've got, we use it in layman's term, the paper, meaning you've got the credentials for this position. What are the types of degrees do you have? Or
Well, personally, I have a Bachelor of Science degree in Civil Engineering from Northeastern University. I also have my Master of Science degree in Civil Engineering from Northeastern University. And I am a registered land surveyor in Massachusetts, as well as a registered professional civil engineer in Massachusetts. So that gives me a very good background. But any training in the environmental sciences, whether it's biology or chemistry, because these sciences are interwoven and interrelated. So whether it's a Bachelor of Science in environmental studies or biology or botany or chemistry or even physics, those you can use those to protect the environment and actually learn more. But I've seen people with an art degree in music, and because of their interest, they go in and take courses. So basically, a college education in any field, really, whether it's in communication, because you'll be able to communicate with the public, gives you that training. But I don't think there's any particular degree that is essential in and of itself for the position. But any of the sciences, it's good.
I think the credentials that you have, as soon as people realize you have them, I think that somewhat cuts back on controversy, because sometimes people come in, they're all well-meaning, and they're good to their mother, and wonderful people. And then they start making rules and regulations kind of off the top of their head as they go along. They're winging it, you know. And that's what leads to discontent within a community. So with, you know, not to say because you're sitting here, but you are sitting here, with the credentials you've got, if the professionals come in with their high-priced lawyers and all these other things, and they realize the credentials you've got, it's more towards settling things. If there be modifications, you'd know how. Whereas sometimes people who mean well, they know how to do things. They don't know how to modify things.
Right, right. No, it's and I think I am fortunate in my training and to have had a father who had the foresight to send his kids to colleges, you know. And he was a contractor, but I didn't want to be out in the field all the time, listening to him yelling. So I opted for the engineering. But
that's a great degree. Now, how long have you been associated with Bridgewater?
Since 1989.
89. Are you there? What's your position there with Bridgewater?
I am the permanent, if you will, but part-time, not a full-time conservation agent.
Okay.
And that the distinction between my position in Bridgewater and Raynham is that the position in Bridgewater is as a town employee, whereas in Raynham is as a consultant.
And that's what people have to understand. This
right,
position is a consultant.
Consultant. And that for the town of Raynham, it does it very well because it cuts down on the amount of money that they have to outlay every year for a paid, you know, in this position as a consultant, they get the benefits of my professional background, but they don't have to be incumbent with paying unemployment insurance or
and these are the two communities you're affiliated with.
That's correct. So the town of Raynham doesn't get incumbent by those.
Who came over and found? Come over and reeled you in? Who came over?
Well, I don't know about reeling in, but my friend Chris Gallagher, who I believe is a member of your planning board as well as your sewer superintendent. Has similar background that I have.
Yes.
He's also an engineer and a registered professional engineer in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And he has his bachelor's and master's, as I do. So we go back quite a ways, and at the time that I was doing a lot of reviews for the town of Bridgewater, Chris will come in. I said every other consultant
Sure.
will come in, and maybe I'll catch them on a couple of things that they're doing different
Yeah,
that
sure.
they change. And
Yeah.
where Chris, to his credit, recognized the benefit of having a good professional that understands the not just the math, but also can write very good opinions, and were recommended to the town, and then the town saw it fit. The Conservation Commission and your town administrator, Mr. Randy Buckner, decided to have me in. And I cannot imagine that 4 years is already
Has
come
it
and
been
gone.
4
It's
years?
been 4 years, yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
You're getting old.
Oh, I am old. Oh, well, my daughter.
No,
my daughter.
in my world,
my
you're the youth
yeah, my daughter reminds me of that all the time.
Now, does Bridgewater or Raynham have more area that would fall under conservation, wetlands protection?
Not to be corny, but Bridgewater by its name.
Yeah. That's right. I hadn't thought of that. Yeah, but it rains a lot here.
Yeah, it does, but it all flows to Bridgewater.
That's funny. I hadn't thought. You've used that line before. Don't talk.
I have.
All right, just wanna make sure.
Are there any big projects in either community that would come before conservation?
Yes,
board?
the project that is currently winding down, Walmart on 138 in Raynham. It's a big project, and they've been doing a fairly decent job. And part of the work that the commission does too, it's a lot of enforcement activities. But the other big project that you have that is basically on the town line will be the lakeside lakeshore centers that is owned by Connie.
Yes.
And now they're building a 40B project there, which is a lot of units. But it's they've planned it such that all the buildings and all the parking are essentially outside the the regulatory buffer zone of wetlands, except for their drainage systems. But you do want, if the drainage system is properly designed, as it is in that project, then you want the runoff to recharge your groundwater after it's been treated.
Sure.
So we do have that. And Mass Highway, or Mass DOT, as it is now known, is doing a lot of reconstruction work on the highways.
Okay.
And they come before the town, and then there's a gas line that is being extended through the two communities. So the two communities are fairly busy.
I guess so.
Yeah, very busy.
And they're close enough to be of concern, so you can work both of them, and it doesn't end at the line. Because
That will be correct. That will be correct. And that's the benefit of having somebody that covers both communities.
That's right.
Conservation Commission meets twice a month in Raynham?
In the summer, it meets once a month.
Okay.
Because people schedule their vacations and so on and so forth. But typically, it's the first Wednesday and the third Wednesday of the month during the fall, winter, and spring.
Okay. And if people had concerns or questions, they could probably just call Town Hall and leave a message?
You call the Conservation Office. We have an excellent, and I'm not saying it because we're tipping this, but we do have an excellent secretary that runs both the Board of Health office and the Conservation Office, and that is Gail Santos.
Okay.
And the town is blessed to have her, and I kid you not,
I know
she's an excellent lady. So you can call that office. 508 done, 508 for the people that don't know.
Okay.
It's 508-824-2706.
706.
See, the whole town hall is 82427. And the next question is, what are the last? So you really don't have to remember. If you remember that much, you only have to remember the last two. But one thing I will thank your office and Bridgewater therefore for, and I think that Chris Gallagher was active in this also, the secretary you have in Bridgewater helped train Gail.
Yes,
sure you're aware
Laurie Kane, yes.
from Bridgewater.
Yes.
Assisted her and volunteered to do this sort of work, which was really, to say two communities, we've had good days and bad, but more good than bad.
More good than bad.
And I will say that the two things I think I've read away were the joint meetings where Randy Buckner once a month has the meetings of all the boards. That came from Bridgewater. And Bridgewater assisted us through your office and through your secretary. Now, you're right. Gail is second to none in
Yeah.
her ability to what's going on, but she needed the assistance of your office in doing that, and so Raynham thanks you and your assistant.
Yeah, well, thank you for letting us be part of it.
Well, it was something that above and beyond, I believe. And I will compliment Chris Gallagher because he is an organization man. He gets things done.
No, he does.
He does.
He really does.
And so
He really does.
I just thought it would be accurate to make mention that he was the man that went over and sat down, talked to you in your office and all.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did.
And we're lucky to have him.
Amen.
You know.
We get a few more minutes. Is this a good career area for young people to get involved in, would you say?
It really, Patty, it really is. I think if you are interested in protecting our very, very endangered, if you will, resources, especially in water supply, can you imagine that we pay? It costs more to buy water now than to buy Coca-Cola. So it's amazing that the things that are good for you are more expensive than the things that are bad for you.
It's amazing, too, that people buy it in the bottle when they can get it out of the faucet, and it's better.
You know, because it
you
has all the nutrients.
You go over to the Jacqueline plant for the water district in Raynham, and you see the complexity of that, and then you see, I don't mean not to open up wounds, but some of these people, the way they bottle the water, they don't put it through the same test as the cities and towns.
No, and I think I'd actually drink
But you're
a lot.
right, people will pay. I see them when they just have cases loads of it, of water.
So it's very, very, really, it's a very good career to be in because you can actually see how the good decisions, or in some instances bad decisions, can affect people's lives. You can, and not just quantitatively speaking, but qualitatively.
Sure.
You know, and it's one of those things. I love that commercial. I think it's Visa or MasterCard that says we're taking a trip, $100, doing this, $80. Taking your kid to an ice cream shop, priceless. I would say having a good, well-balanced environment and protected resources, priceless.
Absolutely.
So it's
And
really,
this part of the state can correct errors that were made in the north part of the state, because the north, where I come from, up in Woburn, I would be 12 miles from Boston. I could get to Boston quicker than you can get to Middleborough because of the sizes. The Taunton's the largest city, acreage-wise, and Plymouth is the largest town. Middleborough's the second largest town. And of course, Brockton was once part of Bridgewater. People got it reversed.
North Bridgewater.
That's right. It's you still call it that?
Yeah, North Bridgewater.
And those were the good old days. Well, we want to thank you very much for coming and sharing your information and your knowledge with us.
Thank
and
you,
your
Pat.
experiences here in Bridgewater and in Raynham.
Thank you.
And if people have more questions, they can call Gail in your office at the Raynham Town Hall, 508-824-2706.
Oh, wow, great memory.
All right.
Great memory.
And we'll also say that the members currently of the Conservation Commission are very capable people.
Very capable. They actually do go out and do inspections. So, and they're very, very seriously, very well-meaning people. And they take the interest of, they put the interest of the town ahead of their, because you got to remember, these are volunteer people.
Yes.
That's right.
You know,
Yes.
I'm the only one that's getting paid. So there's,
And
so,
you're a good deal.
okay, so
wanna tell you.
it's important to realize
Yeah.
that these people are very, very committed people that have the interest of the community at heart.
And they're working to protect the community and
To
all of us.
protect the community, exactly.
And I didn't know they were co-chairs. That's interesting.
Yeah, that would be
Billy's forever going to not run again, you know. And he said to me one time, as soon as I get this passed, this law, and I said, well, I'm going to talk against the law. So we'll keep you on the board, because he's very good.
Yeah, very, very. Well, see, he's in construction, so he
We call it
understands.
street smarts.
Yeah, he understands the methods.
Yeah.
And we are out of time, believe it or not, but thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Pat.
We want to thank you also for being with us here on The Good Old Days. We'll see you on our next episode.